I was good about everything except restarting my intro. 1 second, everybody. Wait, we can't start this show without a paint sploosh. Wait, wait, wait. Wait for it. Wait for it. All right, now we can start this show. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wednesday. And this is me, your host, Ian of the Reaper Pro Tips show with disembodied voice Justin and a more or less quiescent Kiri. Not too enthusiastic today, not too sleepy yet. Yes. Yeah, the dragon is working. Don't hit the dragon. It's actually it's working as intended, to quote Blizzard and other video games. Yes. Hello, everybody. Hello. I'm just looking down. Well, yeah, Val, that's the problem. That's why we're late, right? Because it emptied itself again, unexpectedly. This is old dog syndrome. I have a dog with a very unpredictable butt, and it went off a second time this morning, and I had to spend time doing that. And then David was running late this morning as well, so I became a late Ann. When your day depends on other people to, be ready on time, it's really annoying. But it's like, David has to shower before me because I'm taking the dog out when he's showering, so it's efficient until he doesn't get in the shower till later or something happens and is delayed. Yeah, so it's been that thing. The cats run to the TV when they hear the sploosh. That's hilarious. Well, I'm glad that cats are a fan of my show. Really, that's what matters, right? What matters is that I'm good cat TV, folks. All right, cool. Well, let's pop over here. So I wasn't going to work on Dragon today, but then I realized that I had preserved my palette from yesterday under saran wrap. And I didn't want it to wait another day because usually, I can often let it wait 2 days. It depends on how tight my saran wrap is. Like if my shrink wrap is brand new, I can let it wait for maybe 3 days before it goes. But as you can see, the paint's still wet. So I thought we would take advantage of that. After a day of working with my refreshed palette, I usually will get annoyed and clean it out and have to remix everything. But there are our colors, our pretty colors. I think our dragon has a very pretty color scheme. I am a fan. To put it blankly. Let's see here. There we go. So, we'll be using the pink on his wings too, I think. Yes, the feline demographics totally important. Alrighty, and I'm a little stiffly today. Might be something in the air. The window is open here in the hobby room, so I'm sure all sorts of insidious bits of pollen and tree mung managed to sneak into the room overnight. All right, so let's see. I want to do his belly today, so I'm going to mix up my yellows, my Osirian sand. Yeah, for me it never does, GB, although I'll tell you this isn't nearly as bad as it was in Wisconsin. Let's see, and then I want my NMM Gold highlight, which is here. The one thing that does happen when you do this and preserve your paint overnight is you do probably get a little bit of paint that's dried on the sides that mixes itself in. So if you see little paint chunks and paint strings, kind of pull them off to the top so that they don't end up on your brush. But in general, they should be paint strings and not paint chips, and that's important. Because the strings are easy to pull out, and they're easy to pull off a model if they accidentally get on there. Whereas little tiny flecks of dried paint are terrible and horrible things. Nobody loves them. All right, then we want a green that's really pale, because I do want to shade the belly with a little bit of green. So we'll go to our highlight green from the skin, and we're going to use that for a shadow on the belly. Might have to go a little darker also, so I'm going to refresh this paint as well. And pretty much when I come back to my palette, I just dip my brush in the water so that it has a little bit of wet on it, but not huge drops or anything. And I use then my brush to just mix up my paint that's been sitting overnight. And usually that puts it at a decent consistency. I often put, and if I haven't stirred it up recently when I put the saran wrap on it, I'll often just add an extra drop of water also to all the wells. And I'll add water to all the wells around so that I get a nice humid environment, keeping this good overnight. Let's see here. Ah, the cat likes it because, see, if you're sitting with the cat on the bed during my show, no wonder the cat likes this show. Like, there's no question there. So, all right. So we're going to mix up our oranges also because I want to do these big crystals on his chest in an orange. And we had kind of mixed up in a harvest brown to be the shadow for our potential shadow for our orange. And we had a lantern yellow. So we're mixing up all of our fall colors now, which now that it is actually fall is completely suitable. Didn't put too much lantern yellow in here, so I may need to mix up more. Alrighty. Alrighty, dragon. Let's go. Where is my bigger brush? Bigger brush. I could use a very big brush to block this in very fast. I want to use a flat? Sure, let's use a flat. Let's use gigantic brushes on miniatures like dragons. I think I want mostly to be yellow. This is a yellow Taklon. It's just going to let me base coat everything quickly. But I'm inevitably going to need to switch to a smaller brush to do everything else. And I don't necessarily want to be using this big brush as I get close to the edges here. But I do think I want it on these little wobbly things there on the sides. So let's get you in focus, dragon. He's so hard to get in focus because he has such a high depth of field. So hold on, let me grab him in a way that lets me zoom and lets me focus. There we go. Morning. Pumpkin spice gemstone dragon. Not with all that green. I would have had to do him with browns and cinnamon red and oranges and things like that. Though I am going to make pumpkin spice muffins, or at least fall spice muffins later. I put pumpkin in the last batch of pumpkin spice muffins, but I actually like them better when I use the pumpkin spice mixture with applesauce in my muffins instead. So apple spice, which is still fall. There we go. And if I want to, I could actually do some rough shading. I don't know, though. I'm going to switch. With this dragon, I probably would only really use this big flat on the wings. It's really going to be a boon on the wings. Though I do like our yellow. Yeah, I have a fatter cat plus. Oh my god. That's video game companies for you. Oh, I've got a spare hair. Wait, I've got a stray hair on my brush. This calls for an amputation. A couple of them, actually. Let's see here. So I showed how to do this before. First of all, we need to really figure out which is our... That's a bad hair. We gotta trace it all the way down to the ferrule with our knife. Usually if you gently pull at it, you can get it to cooperate, unless it's a really recalcitrant hair, in which case it totally deserves to die. And then you use your knife just to snick it off at the very bottom, without disrupting all your other hairs. So doing some brush surgery like this, to get my brush all nice, is much better now. It does happen to the best of brushes that hairs get loose. Yeah, the challenging thing, I'm going to have to make all my stuff on diet. We were talking about all diets yesterday. You know, guys, I was thinking about this after that, because we were all talking about our different diets and the stuff that we've done to try to, you know, get healthy, lose weight. Really, the important thing is, whatever change you make, is do you feel good? You know, is it good for you? And, like, you know, is it sustainable? Can you keep the behavior up? And then, you know, is it working? Those are your 3 questions. Because if you ever try a diet that makes you feel lousy, I'm just a firm believer in find another diet. Make another lifestyle change. If you make a lifestyle change and you really feel crappy, don't do it. One of my motivators on the ketogenic diet is just that I feel so darn good when I'm on it. So it helps because it is a little more difficult. Especially at the beginning, it was a lot more difficult before I figured out how it worked for me. So kudos to all of you who are trying to lose a few pounds and become a healthier person. Keep it up. All right, and we're probably gonna, as we get down here, I'm gonna start mixing in. I've got that brown, that delicate brown that I used on his horns, which was, as I recall, a mixture of russet brown and my Osirian sand. I'm gonna mix a little bit of that in. Mostly I've got russet brown, but essentially mixing. This is a nice mix actually. So russet brown and NMM gold highlight gives you this nice warm kind of golden brown, which has decent coverage thanks to all the white in the NMM gold highlight. And that's the kind of color that's a really good kind of warm shadow color here. So I'm going to grab a bit of that and start mixing it into this. It's a very pretty brown. And if we blend it in gradually to our NMM highlights, it makes a very convincing warm shadow. Now this is the sort of shadow you'd want to use if your dragon is in the sunlight. Because warm shadows usually shadows are cooler if you're, especially if you're in the shade. But if you have a model that's out in strong light, you can get away with warm shadows, which sometimes look really nice. And I'm going to say that the dragon is in the sunlight. We'll go with warm. It also goes along with his general color scheme. So there, see that's a really nice, like, kind of color transition, and it looks natural. It's not a, you know, it doesn't look fake. It looks very naturalistic. Even though this is the most garish of dragons, remember, I'm trying to make him look like he's real, instead of going for the all-out magical dragon look. I kind of like to do that with creatures. I'm kind of the James Gurney mindset in that. You know, take the fantastical and make it look like you could run into it on the street somewhere, and it just gives you a whole different look at the thing. So now I'm going to start, though. I don't want too much of that brown. We can put a little bit of a hint in it in here, because it's still kind of, that's where the chest is kind of starting to curve underneath. I'm just doing a lot of these big areas on dragons. I wet blend. I just add a touch of my shadow color or my highlight color, and I blend it with the mid-tone. And I just find that kind of sets up the area very quickly. With a minimum of fuss, I can block it in. I can see how it's working. See, that's a very pretty brown. Yes, the hobby does not consider exercise. And I think that's a mistake. Like, every evening I go out for my walk. And it really helps me. It helps me pep up in the evening, because a lot of the evening is when I do my own painting, right? A lot of the day is when I'm working on commission or Patreon or coaching or whatever I'm doing. And then really in the evening is when I have time to work on my own stuff. So if I run out of energy, then that's bad. I never get to work on my own stuff. So exercise is a key component of how I keep my energy level up. If I'm not doing exercise, I immediately notice like both a more negative attitude, not as positive, and I notice also that I'm lower in energy. That I don't have the energy I need. Okay, we're going to introduce a little bit of green up here. I want to, I'll have to judge how much green I want and how dark I want it. And I want it mostly in the shadows here. I may change my mind, though, because I really like that brown. And I'm like, well, but I want some green kind of as we get toward the sides of the head, because I am going to pop green. I am going to pop green in some of these recessed areas. There's a lot of crystals right here, but there's also some green scales right in this kind of flat area behind the head. So I do want my green there. We're getting a lot of crystal territory, though. So the dragon's color is really going to vary because there are so many crystals. So it's like, depending on how many crystals, the dragon is going to variably look like a green or an orange dragon. Sweet pumpkin soup. I'm sure somebody's done that. I know there's a chilled pumpkin soup out there somewhere. I swear I've seen it. It makes sense. Squash soups tend to do well cold. Last night we made fajitas. Tonight I am making a kind of a, not really an African, it's a Mediterranean salmon. It's a za'atar, so it's kind of a Middle Eastern blend. Garlic and za'atar. All right, so we've got our green. Those are our green bits. Everything beyond that really is gemstones. Now these little frills next to his face, I painted them as gems on the other side, but on this side they're sculpted more like frills, so I have to make a decision here. I think I do want them to be the yellow and orange though, so I'm going to just go for it. Oh yeah, now that it's finally almost like getting fall feeling here, I am switching over. Like I'm going to make chili this weekend for the first time here. All of my stews and stuff like that are very much winter dishes for me. I don't usually make them in the summer. I do a lot of lighter fare in the summertime. So I definitely cook seasonally. So all my cinnamon curry lamb stew and my beef bourguignon, my other beef stews that I do. I do a lot more roasts in the winter. So like we've got a lamb loin roast that I've been sitting on. I did actually, just for David, I ordered duck from a certain place online. And so we have actually some duck leg quarters sitting frozen. And we're going to actually do duck confit for the first time, which I have heard about but never made and never had, but I love duck, so it must be good, right? And Kiri will be like ecstatic because duck is one of Kiri's all-time favorite things. There, we got some orange blocked in on those side crystals, so we get some of that color in there. Yeah, my chili is half beef and half venison, Shadow Raven. I love venison. And venison, ground venison is the only venison I can really find around here. And the only venison I could really find in Texas either. So growing up in Wisconsin, I'm afraid I was very spoiled for fresh venison in the fall. They always had it at the farmers markets. But here, that is not the case. Not that I've seen anyway. Now, the Whole Foods, I probably should ask at the Whole Foods here. Because sometimes Whole Foods will get like kind of regional stuff like that. It would be cool if they got venison. It would be cool to have some venison steak and eggs. That's one of my faves. Yeah, duck is awesome. Oh, a blue moon on Halloween? Oh, that's going to be fun. Everybody will be crazy. Plus stir crazy from all the pandemic. Nice. Yeah, chili in the Instant Pot would be easy. My problem with the Instant Pot, because I've got one. Double werewolves. But the problem that I have is that I love my Dutch oven so much. I love my Le Creuset so much. And it's just so handy, and it's fairly easy to clean up. And so even though the Le Creuset isn't as fast as the Instant Pot, I often choose to use it because it's more enjoyable to use, in my opinion, than the Instant Pot. Because I actually like to cook, so it's like the Instant Pot has limited virtue for me. Now, I do love the Instant Pot when it comes to doing stocks, which I do like to make my own broths and stocks after I roast something. So, and if you've never tried it, guys, prime rib soup is a thing. Oh my god, prime rib soup. Just saying. Throw some extra beef into it, but oh my god. If you wonder what to do with the bones of your prime rib after you eat your prime rib, this is what you do. You make prime rib soup. Most decadent soup ever. Or stew. All right. Yeah, I'm doing it with a green. It's kind of like, and it's unusual, right, Grim? Like, it's almost more like I want a color kind of leaching in from the side here. I don't want to lose my greens. So this is a tactical decision here, because these little lumps here are gemstones. So they're going to go orange. But I want a little bit of green in here, because remember, he does have his skin is green. So I'm introducing a little bit of this along the sides here mostly. And I'll knock it back a bit. I want the underbelly to mostly be yellow, but I do want those touches of green. Oh, Rubigon, just don't even ask me. Okay, for the record, I hate transparent transparent bones, guys. I hate transparent resin. I just don't ever, I really dislike painting on it. So asking me about how I would do it on transparent dragon, I'd say prime it. Don't use the transparency. I mean, yeah, you'd have to use, okay, if you're going to use a transparent resin or a transparent dragon and have it look like actual gemstones, you want to actually use a totally clear medium to color the gemstones. Totally clear, not pigment. It's like inks or something. So it's like, I mean, you could, right? You get clear brights are not totally clear. Like any pigment has particulate matter, right? But some things are more clear than others. So find the most transparent medium you can and use that. Yeah. But I am not a fan of. At that point, it's like, I don't know. Like, it looked okay on the Water Weird, but even then, I'd rather have painted the Water Weird just to look like water. It's kind of in the school of thought of like special effects paints and metallics and things like that, right? You're letting the model or the thing do the work for you. And that's cool if you're going, like, if you're trying to go fast, or I guess it could look cool. I don't know. It might just look weird. Cause like I said, okay, so you're painting the rest of the dragon to look like, you know, you're highlighting and shading it to suggest a specific light source. But then you're just going to leave these big gems transparent, so the light is going to reflect off them willy-nilly wherever it is in the room, and it's not necessarily going to match. I think that's the key. That's really the root of why I'm not a fan of transparent models. Because I can't, you know, it's not necessarily going to look right when I highlight the rest of the dragon according to a light source. So, you know, if you love them, paint them by all means. I had a lot of fun with the little water weird that I painted. But that's why you really won't see me painting a lot of the transparent ones on here. I'm not a big fan. I just prefer to paint my highlights on and not have the model do it for me. I'm going to just get these little nubbies and paint them a bit greener on the side here. See that? So I can bring in my green a little bit here. I will bring my brown up a little bit in the center, I think, as the actual, like, shadow for some of this, the neck. Yeah, I mean, you could drill into it and add an LED. Right, you're really limited in what effect you can get compared to painting the look you want. Yeah. Yeah, it's Wednesday, Sephiroco. You're good. You're good. I got you back. It's Wednesday. Twisted Oma, I can get ground wild boar here. They have it at Sprouts. But I'm not a big fan of wild boar. I actually prefer venison. I've had a lot of those gamey meats because, you know, my family in Wisconsin is pretty rural. And even when I was in Madison is when I had a lot of them, because I had a friend who was just out of the Marines. And he really loved, like, wild game and hunting. And so he made a lot of stuff and introduced me to a lot of these, like, gamey meats. Although I always had cousins and uncles who hunted deer, so that was a family association there. Once I realized how tasty Bambi was, I didn't care about, like, Bambi as much anymore. That's a horrible thing to say. But it's true. They're so tasty. It's like I look at little ducklings and I think they're terribly cute, but I also think they look very tasty. Ducklings are like nature's hors d'oeuvres. Like, everything on Earth likes to eat them. So, yeah, wild boar is good. It's just, I think, I just like venison. I don't know what it is, especially in chili. I just think the venison really works well in chili. I did accidentally make lamb chili one time because I had ground meat in the freezer and I'd forgotten that it was lamb. And that was a very weird chili. Like, it had a very odd flavor. It took me a while to accustom myself to that. Lamb and chili are not going to work unless you, like, have a heavy cinnamon chili, I think. Or something that you've turned almost Indian. Ah, you've been influenced. There we go. Five Mondays in a row, then 2 days stuck at home, then more Mondays. Oh, is that what it is? Oh, that's so depressing. I used to feed you deer meat. He called it special burgers. Oh, dear. Chili is just so great, and I can make mostly low-carb cornbread. Mostly. But, you know, some dinners are used, you know, I can cheat. Ketosis is a weird thing where I can do a cheat dinner you know, that's a real cheaty with lots of sugary dessert or something, as long as I just do one. So like Thanksgiving doesn't actually throw me off my diet. It doesn't shift my body chemistry. I have to just, you know, go back on the keto the next day. So every once in a while I do a cheat meal. I can make, my cornbread I actually use masa flour for, which I actually find I prefer. It's less texture, and it's still got that rich corn taste to it. Corn flavor. But it's actually lower carb. It's masa is the corn flour they usually use for tortillas. But when I looked at it and I realized that because of the way they process it, it's lower carb, and that I liked the texture better, I was like, oh, well, I'm going to start using this. And yeah, so I make cornbread with it. Oh, wrong thing. Wrong color, Anne. There we go. I accidentally was reaching for my Harvest Brown there for a moment instead of my Russet Brown and NMM highlight mix. I'm gonna add some browns here. Oh yeah. Freezer full of ground venison. Awesome. Captain Ron. Today I was going to get to these ones right here on the front, Captain Ron, because these are the easiest. Like, because you can kind of see even just in the light from my lamp how the facets are catching the light. So it's very easy to figure out what your lightest facet is. And we're going to be doing here. This is one I did before, since you're interested in gems. If you look up the VODs on Reaper, this would be on the Reaper YouTube by now because it's an old one. But when I was painting Rock Troll here, and he's still in progress, we looked up a visual reference and figured out how to paint gems based on, you know, the visual reference. So I'll be using this same sort of pattern today on these gems, which are a little bit different, not as tall crystals on the chest there. But we'll be doing that same sort of color pattern. So we're just going to be using oranges because I wanted a fall forest gem dragon. I decided I wanted to cross the streams on this one. So I love forest dragons, and I hadn't painted anything green in quite a while. But right now, I want to add in some of my brown for shading. And I can blend it into my greens over here. So we do want to have a little bit of that shadow. We don't want to lose the details of his chest, even if we want his chest to be light. And I'm going to highlight this with Osirian Sand, so I'm going to bring it up pretty pale. Sure, no problem, Captain Ron. It's not hard, but the gemstones, to get gemstones right, it helps if you can visualize how light travels. So the same sort of conceptual skills that you would use to do non-metallic metal is what you use when you're doing gemstones. So gemstones, like there are two sets of techniques in the world for miniature painting. And the first ones are purely mechanical techniques. Things like washes and base coating and layering and wet blending or two brush blending. Things that are purely mechanical. You just learn the brush stroke, you learn how to thin the paint for it, and you do it. And then there's a set of techniques that I call conceptual techniques. And those are the special effects techniques which involve you actually having to think, having a concept of how light is hitting your model. So things like overhead lighting, gemstones, transparent objects, NMM, non-metallic metal, where you're painting metal effects without using metallic paint. All those things are conceptual techniques. And they involve thinking about things differently. So in order to do gemstones well, you need to wrap your brain around how light passes through things and kind of understand a basic set of rules for it. I'm going to get up under his neck and put some of this brown up there in this little spot because it's in shadow. So while I'm painting this dragon, as you can see, I'm painting stuff that's in shadow darker. That's one example. That's the most basic type of conceptual technique, is overhead lighting, where you're definitely painting stuff, not just painting it light when it sticks out, but painting it light and dark depending on whether it's in light or in shadow. So you move from there. Once you have a good understanding of overhead lighting, that's when everything else takes off for you. That's when you can really start pushing some of that other fun stuff like non-metallic metal and crystals and all the rest of it. Before that, you're going to kind of be stumbling around in the dark. You might duplicate what I do, but you won't understand necessarily why you're making the decisions you do. So I usually advise, like I have a PDF and I'm thinking about putting it up for free on my Patreon, which is a listing of the techniques, like what I see as the basic conceptual and mechanical techniques and kind of the order that I recommend you tackle them in to kind of make sense to your brain. Now, everybody is different, and so that order may not be the truth for all people, but at least it'll give you a list of techniques. I usually send it out when somebody joins my Patreon and says that they're new. I usually send them that PDF for free lately if they're new to mini painting, because they usually yeah, that's exactly it, Grim. That's exactly it. You're going to stumble around in the dark because you don't understand it. So what you should do probably is take a step back and really try to master overhead lighting. Just basic overhead lighting. Overhead light source on a figure. No special wing wangs, no NMM, no crazy. Just overhead lighting. Everybody wants to run before they can walk. And sometimes people get away with it. And then that encourages everybody else. But if you're frustrated, that's never good. You should never be frustrated in this hobby. You should always be excited to learn the next thing. Ideally, that's Anne's opinion there. And so if you find yourself getting frustrated, you are probably trying to run before you walk. And overhead lighting is awesome. It's not like it's a boring technique. It can give you all sorts of really dramatic effects. I mean, Troll is overhead lighting. He's dramatic overhead lighting. You have to stop and think about where the light's going to hit. So, you can do some wonderful things by learning to think about light on your miniature. And of course, once you have overhead lighting, then it's very easy to do OSL, to do a glowing object on your model, because you understand light then. So you're like, oh, okay, so if the light is coming from the sword, where would it fall? And it's a lot easier for you then. So that's why I'm like, there's definitely an order that makes sense to learn these things. And yeah, you can try to do a whole bunch of things, but if you don't understand the most basic step, it's like trying to mix a complex chemistry formula when you haven't done Chemistry 101. You can pour the vials of stuff together, but if there's a problem, you have no idea what went wrong. And if you pour the vials of stuff together wrong, you could get an explosion, or a ruined miniature, or a miniature that you get so disgusted with that it is essentially ruined to you, which is a shame. So yeah. Yeah. It explodes, and in the world of miniature painting, a miniature exploding means that you feel that you have ruined it to a point where you can no longer even look at it, and you toss it in the garbage or against the wall. And no mini wants that. Like, every mini dreams of being a mini that you treasure. And so we don't want the minis to be sad. Therefore, you should learn some overhead lighting. That's what I'm saying. You may never use overhead lighting again. You may decide from that point forward that you're always going to have an other alternative light source, and all of your lighting is going to be coming from sideways or underneath or something. I don't care, but learn the technique. Learn how light travels. Then you can paint like David and break the rules all over the place. David is just one of those lucky people who understood light theory pretty much out the gate. Well, not I get. I take that back. He had some early models where he didn't get it as much, but that was what he was interested in, and so he really applied himself to that. Whereas I loved color, so for me, color was always my experimental mode. Right, so Dogfather, that's it, right? So if NMM still frustrates you, take a step back and think about overhead lighting. Think about how light falls and where your shadows are, and where light is going to hit. Think about how it travels. Overhead lighting helps you do NMM because you right away realize where your highest highlights and your where your highest highlights are falling, where your surfaces that are, perpendicular to the light are, and where your undersides are. So it's like you gotta be able to envision that before you do successful NMM. Like it really is a trying to run before you can walk thing. It's not that you're failing. It's not that you don't understand NMM. It's that you need to practice a little bit more with just basic lighting on basic objects until you start thinking about, okay, so I understand lighting now and I can do a nice, dramatically lit from above miniature. Now let's figure out how metal is different from everything else, right? that's when you can start paying attention to the qualities of surfaces as far as reflectivity or, you know, other factors like texture. You know, that's when you can start really understanding that stuff and how it affects things. And I mean, I'm experienced with it, and I still, every once in a while, make mistakes with it. Like, if I change scale, like I'm working on that big science fiction bust right now, and I'm really frustrated with her breastplate. At first I thought it was the color, which is not like me at all. Then I realized that I probably have my highlights, like, wrong. That I need to reconsider, because it's a shiny, you know, she's a science fiction model, so it's a shiny surface, reflective surface, and I'm probably highlighting it incorrectly. So I have to take a step back sometimes. So don't feel like you're never going to get it or that, you know, it's too hard or anything. It's just you got to learn the rules, and then when you have a problem, then you have the rules so you can fall back and apply them. Hey, Rainbow Sculptor, how's it going? Christine. Yeah, we're doing for an Autumn Forest Gemstone Dragon, Rainbow Sculptor. Because I love forest dragons, and I wanted to paint something more like a watercolory kind of looking dragon. At least at the beginning. He will get more saturation as we go, but yeah, Zenith priming gives you kind of an idea, right? Yeah, and that's what Zenith is good for. Like, you know, you can take a picture after you Zenith Prime, and it helps you figure it out. Now, and that helps you figure out overhead lighting. Like, I mean, I'm not happy with this right now, and it's going to be changed up, but I've got some more color on her. So here's the big bust, right? So what I need to do is I need to really lighten up this entire area. And I realized that after I blocked in my teal and blue, that I was too saturated, and two, I really needed, like, a big white glare needs to be, like, pretty much right here. But my Zenith lighting was telling me that. Like, when it was Zenith, this whole thing was pretty much just white. So I need to concentrate on that and fix that. Yeah, what I did, it was especially apparent when I started out on the face. We started out very pale, and then we built up stronger and stronger layers of color. So this was very much, and I started out pale here, and I'm working down. So we're very much using a very watercolor effect here. I am violating it now when I'm going to my Osirian sand for the highlight, which of course, you know, it would be like using opaque, you know, but using white gouache in the watercolor world. But I never thought that was really a bad thing. So, oh, thanks, Kroniko. Yeah, her face is fantastic, and I'm very happy with it. That's why I'm going to keep fighting with the rest of it, actually, is because I really love this. So she turned out exactly, like, this is actually not painted with Master Series, by the way, guys, except for the white. The white is the only Master Series color. It's painted with Scale 75 tube artist paint. I wanted to give it a real run for its money, and they had some colors in there that I wanted to use in the skin, like the red ochre and the burnt sienna. So we have a burnt sienna equivalent in MSP, but we never got a red ochre. So, and I saw they had a red ochre. I was super excited, and it's a beautiful color. Like, I would think I would use that color on every miniature from now on, if I could. But yeah, she's my personal private project. I essentially realized I'd been collecting science fiction busts recently. Like, obviously my subconscious mind wanted to paint some sci-fi, and so I decided that I couldn't buy any more science fiction busts unless I painted one that I had. So I decided to start on that one. That's her name is Siggy from Mr. Lee's Miniatures, but I'm painting her as like kind of the grumpy elder sister of Farah in Overwatch. Like, I'm going to put Overwatch symbols on her and everything. That's why the orange. Yeah, white gel pen seems to be like common usage. Like David Peterson, who does Mouse Guard, when he does his commissions, he uses white gel pen, and then he uses black ink pen over pencil with gray colored pencil to create halftones, and then white gel pen to pop the white areas. It looks really good. I mean, he's not doing watercolor. He's doing, you know, pen and ink mostly. a pencil and ink. But it looks wonderful. That white gel pen thing. I can see why you'd use it because, you know, precision. Easy precision. I personally, at this point, although I started out being a sketcher, I'm much more a painter now. So I like the white paint. I like using the brush. So we're popping up the highlights here on his chest. But, you know, traditional watercolorists, if you use like opaque white or white gouache, they kind of like look down their noses at you because silly. Sarduki, thank you. Thank you for the resub. The reprime sub. I really appreciate it. We are working toward our next AMA, and I think we're around 50. So we need 100 so I can give away some more big stuff. Or maybe a big group of smaller minis. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. I usually don't figure those things out until we get close. So I'm trying to get... I want some nice light to come down. You can see if I turn him... And always use your lamp. If you've got a lamp that's very directional or a lamp that's overhead on your table, this is where you can just hold the model under it and watch how the light falls. See, we've got a deep shadow here from... And this is... I'm holding it... My ring light is my strongest light, and that's off here to the... Up here. You can see from how bright my hand gets, see? So I want mostly highlights on this side of that throat ridge and down here. Because I've got this dark shadow here. And since I can see this dark shadow by putting it under the lamp, thanks, Time Stitcher. Thanks for the resub. Super awesome. Help us reach our goal. So now what I can do, since I can see that, is I can paint it in. Because if you look, I haven't actually painted in a lot of that brown. So let's do that. Let's just grab our NMM, and I'm going to actually mix up a proper puddle of this time. My NMM Gold Highlight plus my Russet Brown. Thin it down a little bit, and we're going to actually paint that shadow in, because we can see it. We know it should be there. This is, oh, this is our master. This is a 3D print. I don't know if it was a resin print. But it was the 3D print, the original 3D print we did to show off on reaperlive. So it has its faults and it has its problems, but I'm painting it anyway. Because it was the one that was existing at the time I was still at Reaper. I stole it off the table. Yeah, I used the little light that was in the ReaperCon swag. But I only use it, like, I use it... It's very big, so it's not as useful for little minis. It would be pretty useful for Dragon, but I mean, I've got my directional light, so all I have to do is look and kind of look up on camera and see where my shadow falls. There I am. That's what I want right there. So, and you could make this varying, guys. Like, you could look and say, okay, well, maybe the light is very strong on this side, and then a lot of this side of the neck would be in shadow. That's how you get things like Rock Troll. When you've got the light coming more directionally from one side of the model, you can do that dramatic where it's in shadow on one side and in the strong light on the other. You can do that. And that's what I like. That's the fun part. And that's why overhead lighting is not boring and why you should learn it before you start trying to do a whole lot of other stuff. To go back to our earlier point, because you can do a lot of really cool effects with overhead lighting. I'm just going to block that in, guys. Block it in, block it in. Pretty strong. And then I'll use it while it's still wet. I'll wipe off my brush and I'll feather it out with the damp brush. Feather that edge so that it doesn't set all bad and wonky. Can also do a little bit of blending, grabbing our yellow, blending it into our brown on this side, and then deciding if I need more. Bringing it a little bit more down the middle until I have a shadow that I like. So I can continue to work with this and make it all nice and blended in with all the rest of the stuff here. So now we painted in more of a shadow there. It's going to look a little more natural. Now though, now that I've chosen to do that, I need to remember that that's what I'm doing. So all of my highlights, since I've chosen this direction, which is pretty much straight up overhead lighting, because I'm making if you look, the shadow is straight down. So I now have to adhere to that in the rest of the model. I already was kind of adhering to that, but I need to like kind of watch myself and make sure that I don't choose an off-center light source for something. Hey Neural, thanks for the resub. Yeah. Yeah, with your wolf, yeah, you need to like there's two things, right, Val? You can make that whole stomach lighter, but then I would paint it a straight up lighter gray and use an off-white to come in, you know, a little bit and highlight each of those fuzzy abdominal muscles. But also remember that his chest is going to be lighter because of the light falling on it, not because it, you know, also, and it's also lighter probably because it probably is the same color as the belly. So there's two things going on with Wolfie. He's bent over, so his abdominal area needs to be in a little bit more shadow, but it also is probably lighter if he's colored like a real wolf, which has a lighter underbelly, typically. So there's two things in play there, color and light. They go together, James Gurney says. And that's probably why you're frustrated. Part of it. But yeah, I'm almost all caught up on the Patreon, and so I will be essentially emailing you back and with a second, probably a second PDF, but I'm going to want to see, I'm probably going to assign stuff, Val. I'm probably going to ask you to do specific things on that model so that you can progress on it. Because I would tackle the face first if I were you. Fix the face first. Make it look more wolfy. Right now it's just gray. And then from the face, I would carry it down through the neck, because then you could pay attention to the shadow area here. And then I'd go down to the chest and up on the shoulders. So essentially, instead of just tackling the belly, although I know I used that as an example in the PDF because that was, you know, part of it was easy to show on that. But in reality, we probably need to tackle the face on that model. I'm adding a little bit darker brown here. Once again, I'm using a warm shadow here because I think the dragon is probably in sunlight. So, and I think I want to fade out. Now, we don't want the shadow to be too crazy. It's kind of spreading out here. The dragon has kind of a triangular face. The shadow should shrink probably down here, so I'm going to shrink it. Oh, really? Well, that's awesome, Dogfather. I didn't know that. Yeah, because I missed it. That's really cool that Aaron watches my streams. Yeah, I try to be really instructive. Aaron is also a great instructor. Mostly I like to break stuff down. So let's take our NMM gold and we're going to just paint a thin layer here to bring this up a little bit so that our shadow isn't quite as dark. I still want some shading, but I'm going to make it a real, it's much lighter down here. So a much lighter touch than it is right there with that dark shadow. So I want to make this kind of an angular shadow because of his head. And I want to fade in this area a little bit and soften it, make it a little bit more yellow. But yeah, that's good to hear. Thanks for letting me know that, Dogfather. I'm a large admirer of Mr. Lovejoy as well. I always recommend, like, if somebody really wants, like, Skype or video coaching, which is not something I currently offer on my Patreon, I always recommend Aaron. Especially if you want to do airbrush. Like, that man is genius. I think it's worth going in for his coaching just to learn airbrushing better. So for those of you who are getting a Reaper Vex and have no idea what to do with it, think about that. And you don't, remember when you go in for coaching with somebody, you don't have to sit there for a year or anything. You're not committing to that necessarily, you know, unless you pay up front on Patreon for your annual membership, then you are. But otherwise, I mean, you can always go in for just a couple months when you are like, you know, when you're when you have the time and you're really in the mood to learn and get what you can out of it. And then you can always like kind of jump out of that coaching level, maybe take coaching from somebody else, you know, and then maybe come back to that person when you have questions. You know, it's like that. And actually the best person who I've seen on this was actually one of David Peterson's friends, a 2D artist, who he has a coaching level with 5 slots, but he only opens it at the start of every month. Because what happens is people come in, they get the coaching that they want, and then they go off and practice. And so they jump off his coaching level. But he doesn't want like 10 people to coach in the midst of the month. So he essentially means that, he only allows it for the first part of the month to sign up. And then after that, once he's done with all those coachings, he's done with his coachings. And then he opens it again at the start of the next month. But he gets a lot of turnover because an artist will come in and he'll give them advice on their portfolio or advice on their whatever, and specific advice, and then they go, oh, okay, good, and then they go off and run with that for a while. So depending on where you are in your mini painting journey, that may be a better style of coaching for you. There's always lots of love in here tonight, Xander Cleese. Oh, nice. That's really great. Yeah, sign up for one. Aaron is a great teacher for airbrush. Like, he breaks it down really well. He answers questions really well. He's one of those rare instructors who, I feel, who doesn't lose sight of what it's like to be a beginner in this field. Right? I try to cultivate that mindset as well, because I feel like it makes me a better teacher for introductory students. It's why I'm always reminding myself of the basics and of how hard it was for me to figure out stuff when I was a younger painter, a newer painter. And so but it's rare. Not every instructor can do that. Some people, once they get good, they have a hard time turning back their heads and recapturing that mindset. And that makes them, the people who can do that, makes them valuable, right? Because and Aaron is one of those. Like, he can explain things from oh no, if you're an idiot, I was an idiot too, and I remember being an idiot. Here, let me show you how not to be an idiot, And Aaron's so easygoing, right? He's also really easy to talk to. He never makes you feel stupid. Aaron never ever makes you feel stupid. If an instructor makes you, or a teacher makes you feel stupid, done. You're done with that person. Just don't even. You don't need that. Life makes us feel stupid enough. Oh, good. There you go, Dogfather. See? Yeah. It's exactly there. That's exactly it. Val, I think you just lost all your previous airbrush layers. Like, to me, he looks like one shade of gray in the photos you sent. Like, one shade of gray. It looks like, to me, like you lost everything except the wash. So if I were you, I don't know, like, I would do a zenith airbrush maybe to start a model, but after that, I would not do successive highlight layers. Especially with something furry, where you need to kind of, like, pick out strands of hair and clumps of hair and stuff. That's why you're not self-taught. You make yourself feel stupid. Yeah, that's true, Bill. We all do that. I mean, looking at my science fiction bust that I just showed a few minutes ago, I feel stupid too, because I'm just like, I got in this groove with it, and then I was like, oh, and I totally forgot what I was going to do here because I'm working with different paints and I'm not pushing my highlights like I should. So, yeah, mood, right? Yeah. Come on, settle down, Kiri. Oh, we may have tail sign, guys. We'll see. We'll see. She's looking at me. Yeah, Kiri's had a rough morning. You know what? I'm going to take her out, I think. Oh, let's see. Yeah. She's kind of giving me this look, but then she's kind of also settling down. What are you doing, Doglet? You going to settle? Gonna settle? Okay. But if you're uncomfortable, we can go out. Do you need to go out? Yeah, I think she does, guys. I'm going to take Kiri out. I'm going to leave you to stare at Mr. Dragon. He's so pretty. But then I'll get back to chat right after I come back, okay? I just want to make sure little dog is feeling good. So I will be right back. I'll just rush her outside real quick. Justin, if you're here, take over, chat, do whatever. Tell them about your latest diet and exercise program, oh, it's the non-diet and exercise program. I see. Yeah. All right, I'll be right back, guys.
It's more like a seafood diet at this point. How is everyone doing? Apparently my chat disappeared. I went to go look for a response and I did not see anything from you guys. So I'll ask again. How is everyone? Yeah, clearly, Quindy, you guys are just hiding. Well, it's good to see all you guys. I'm glad that you guys, tend to watch day to day, et cetera, et cetera. I really appreciate that. If I don't say that enough. Grim, I think there's a container coming in. Uh, today, today maybe. It may have actually already come in, and they're unloading it and kind of like inventorying it. So it's got to be right around the corner, Grim. It's got to be. I'm actually not right now, Carrie. I'm not in the studio. I'm actually at home because my fiance had a fever on Monday, so I we're playing it safe as of currently and kind of making sure that she's not contagious and I'm not somehow sick. Since this day and age, people are very 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 careful about stuff that people used to not pay that much attention to. I couldn't even imagine a year ago when if someone had a minor fever, like a low grade fever, you'd be like, oh, you'll be fine. Here's some Advil, and go about your day. Now it's almost like it comes with its own quarantine. Yeah, she's fine. She's fine. It's likely a sinus infection, so it's nothing crazy. She doesn't still have a fever, so no issues. Thank you guys for your concern though. And I do not know, Nara. I do not know when the Halloween promotions start. I wish I did. I could probably find that information out today or at some point. Um, yeah, that's one of the silver linings I would actually say of the digital con we put on was basically no con cred, unless you're like Bug Lips where you run outside and you do all kinds of crazy stuff with the intention that you want to make sure it's as close to ReaperCon as possible, so you'll end up sick from weather exposure. But Bug Lips is kind of crazy, so you can't really follow that template. It is, Graham. It is. It's its own. I don't know if I would have time to do a Patreon like that, to be honest. I mean, I like the idea because I know that lots of people. You're not the only person who's asked me about it because lots of people want information. We did a stream during ReaperCon of kind of how to begin streaming, and I had my own opinions on a lot of stuff. Um, and I think that there's an outlet for it. I just don't know when I'd find the time, to be honest. I'd have to cut into like sleep or something. I don't know.
No, don't
As it
lose sleep.
stands, this job is very time consuming.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There's a Kiri emergency, Twisted Oma. At least it was a false emergency, but just checking up on stuff. And Christine, yeah, I
Uh-oh.
mean, I would be the one to have to do the slideshow. If I was going to turn my Be Right Back into a slideshow, I would have to figure out how to do that since it's on OBS is on my side, I think. But a Patreon and
Are
how to
we
home stream.
stable? Yeah, I think we're stable now. Yeah, we're fine.
Yeah. Or are we having issues? My side doesn't seem to have issues. We reset our router last night and it seemed to like fix the little hiccups I was getting. Make sure we get good candy in the bags this year. I know, Miss Imp, right? They totally did not like get us great candy last year. Reboot isn't helping. Yeah, they take it pretty seriously here in Northern California. When I go and take my evening walk, most people are in masks, even when they're walking outside far away from each other. All right, Dragon, let's see what we're doing. We're doing gemstones. Let's do it. Let's just jump in. Let's see here. I'm going to do them all in orange first to start with. He uses, actually, Christina, he uses a different program than I do. Wapple streams on a different platform, so I'd have to figure out how to do it in OBS Streamlabs. But I also, I don't have a lot of pictures of the models that I painted for Reaper. I guess I could do a few now. Unlike Wapple, like, though, a lot of the problem is that a lot of the models I do on my stream here, I don't actually finish. Or up until recently, I was doing a lot of models that I didn't finish. And only since I really moved out here to Cali, like, a little bit after I got out here, then I decided I didn't like the fact that I wasn't finishing anything. I didn't like having all these partially painted models around. I was choosing models previously just with an eye toward, what Reaper, what were some models that Reaper thought should be highlighted, or spotlighted, or, stuff like that. Or, oh, I could teach this on this or this on that. And then I just decided, I really wasn't excited about that. So I started instead to pick models that I was excited to paint, so that I knew that eventually I would probably finish most of them. But right now, I could put a slideshow of my paint jobs up, but they wouldn't all be Reaper models. We're just starting to get finished with some of our, like Snake Lady, who I still have to. We have to do her base coming up, guys. We really do. Like, I base coated her in walnut, which really brings home the darkness of it all. So now I can come back and highlight the rocks. So, like, Snack Lady's almost done. I could finish the base on Banshee and finish her in general. She's almost done. Juliana, the herbalist, is almost done. So yeah, we're getting actually perilously close to having some finished models at this point, at which point I could look at slideshow. I'm sure that OBS would make it pretty easy. Candy Corn Dragon. Yeah, and Pit, the purpose is to make him kind of an autumn forest dragon. Hi there, Kiri. Hello, you little trouble. You made me lose a few minutes of stream, Trouble. You're such trouble today. Kiri is totally named Trouble today, guys. She is having such a day. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this orange, we're going to shade it down, we're going to bring it up. I'm going to bring it up with a much brighter yellow. We're going to see if we can keep that from clashing by using a brown for the shading. Because the problem with putting muted colors and really intense colors together is sometimes they don't look great. You have to convince the eye that it's all good. I do like, though, how the orange down there, see, guys, how it's kind of tying into, once I bring these crystals up more brightly, we'll definitely have some associations there, so. Mathfile, I already did one of the bones busts for Ron. I did the Julie sorceress with the dragon. I already painted that one and used it as an example on my Patreon and finished it for a Reaper. So probably, I don't know, I might use the elf. He has potential because he has a lot of cloth. And you could do a pretty heavy shadow on his face too with the hood. But I don't have those yet, so this is going to be the thing, is just like getting some of the new stuff from Reaper if I want to get it before it comes out, for example. I probably could write. I was going to write to Ron anyway and ask him if he had anything he wanted to showcase from Bones 5 that he wanted me to paint on stream, so we'll do that. We'll get there. Alrighty. And since I'm here and I've got this other gem here that's obviously going to be also orange, I'm going to just go ahead and pop it over here. Some of these smaller gems I'm going to go more yellow than orange, but the big ones I want to definitely go orange on. Like amber. There are some really weirdly colored gems out there. I was looking at pink ones the other day. I forget what the rare pink one is. But it's really pink. Like the most most valued specimens of it are. What did you say about paint names? Iffy? I missed it. Oh, were we talking about the peachy flesh again? Or... I missed it. I missed it, guys, which, Dragon Green has always been Dragon Green. It was misnumbered, guys. Wasn't a different thing. Dragon Green and Ancient Oak, they messed up the SKUs upon release, and so they had to be reversed. So that wasn't an actual name change. Ancient Oak and Dragon Green got confused when they were born. They were switched at birth, and we had to fix things. Yeah, well, when I did it, I was, thinking barbarian D&D class. But, a couple of people took it wrong, and so, yeah, we had to change it. I was thinking I was trying to come up with a name for somebody who was outside a lot. I should have, I don't know, I was having real trouble naming those flesh tones. So, peachy flesh and whatever flesh they change barbarian to is fine with me. The item number is going to stay the same. Unlike with Dragon Green, which was definitely a switched at birth item number thing. Which did happen. Sometimes people would transpose numbers, or they get put slightly differently on the spreadsheet, or I'd make a mistake, or somebody else would make a mistake. It happens. That was really early in Bones when that happened. It was a different one. I think it was a pink sapphire scrying eye. I don't remember. I was just looking at, gemstones that are hot right now because they're ultra, ultra rare. Because there are some gemstones that are more popular among collectors than, diamonds. More valuable to collectors than diamonds. So, usually it's the rarity. One of them is my other favorite. One of them is my favorite stone, Tanzanite, and another is one of my other favorite stones, which is the black opal that comes from Australia. Which is not really black. It's blue and a whole bunch of different other colors, but they're so pretty. So pretty, and I will never be able to afford one. But David bought me a necklace in Santa Fe that has a little bit of opal in it. It's turquoise and opal, and I want to say onyx. It's pretty. It's very pretty. Very Santa Fe style. Alright, let's make some Harvest Brown and see what I can do with some shadows here. First of all, though, we need to figure out where our facets are, where our highest highlight is. That's the first thing we always do with a lighting effect. Yeah, I love opal. Opal's probably my favorite gemstone, just straight out iffy. We saw a lot of beautiful ones in Santa Fe. The problem with Santa Fe jewelry style, though, is it's all very ostentatious. It's very big. And I do not need a giant chunk of opal, nor can I afford one. We did manage to find a somewhat, more reasonably sized necklace at one point. Alright, so I'm mixing my Osirian Sand, which is my lightest color, with my Lantern Yellow, which is a more saturated. Now I'm gonna I think I'm gonna turn on my overhead light here and see which facets. I do love this lamp because it does give me a real idea. So I want to line up, what I'm doing, as I'm lining up my shadow from the head. There we go. That's about right. And so what I'm looking at is that. These are kind of similar. So just pretty much as I'm looking under the light, I'm just going to take my light color. I'm going to mark out which facets are the brightest. I'm not filling them in pure white yet. Just want to block them in lighter. And this one will be another one. Sometimes it's obvious, right? It's the upward facing face. You want to look down and see what is the face that is most dramatically hitting, most perpendicular to the light source. That is your gemstone. And this one is probably the other one. This one, if I look, is a little bit slanted away. So I can grab a little bit of orange and tone that down a little bit. It's still facing the light. It'll still have some lighter color in it. It just isn't reflecting the light directly. Alright, so we've got our top facets. I like amethyst quartz. Never say never again. Yeah, that. Those sapphires, the super rare pink. Yeah, you got it, Carrie Michael. Yeah, fire opals are pretty too. I do like the black opals because I like blue. Blue is just a favorite of mine. Now I actually cannot cheat anymore, guys. I actually have to whip out the pure white here. So what this is going to do, because remember, we have not used pure white anywhere else on this model, actually. I mean, the primer, sure, but otherwise we don't have any pure white. So what this is going to do is that it is immediately going to say something about the surface that I'm putting this on. So if I put white anywhere else, I need to remember that it's going to probably indicate either a very light or a shiny surface, right? Because right now everything is very soft. And although we have highlights, for sure, we haven't brought in that shiny point. All of the stuff that you see up here is either a little bit of white primer that's got some green glazed over it, or it's Osirian sand. It's actually not a white. Just an example of how when you don't have any pure white on the model, things like Osirian sand can look really like white, right? They can appear as if they're white. But the minute you put pure white on the model, that disappears. You no longer have that. So here I am going to mix up my pure white. Sit, stay, troll. The rock troll is sitting off to the side for moral support, in case I forget how to paint gemstones. Throwing a bunch of water in my white. Oh, good, Iffy. I'm glad you liked it. Yeah, the black and white PDF. That's been on the list forever. Oh no. No gloss ever. Grim, I'm gonna repeat what I said earlier. Remember what I said about if you were doing transparent gems, how you don't have control? If you put a gloss coat on gems, you also don't have control. Like the facet that you paint then as the highest highlight, suddenly when your light is coming from a slightly different direction, it won't look right because the gloss coat is going to pick up a different angle. So if you're going to do gloss, you do it on a model where you're also doing like metallics, or you're doing other things that are going to mimic the natural light source rather than the one you have painted. Gloss should only be used to suggest, it's really kind of a special effect, right? It's I feel like there are very specific models you should use gloss on, and very specific instances. Because at that point you're using a real effect paint instead of suggesting everything yourself. And so that it runs the same risk of making your other highlights look a little bit off. You can do whatever you want. But it's like, that's why I would never do it, like on this model. No way would I gloss these gems. I really feel like gloss on gems looks bad. Like, because you put that time into highlighting it to look like it's a gemstone, but then you throw a gloss over it. So then it's I don't know. It's always looked odd to me. Because then, like, the dark part of your gem, which is supposed to indicate where, your light is kind of entering the gem and going through it, it's right there. Then that dark part can, like, shine light because it's got gloss over it. And then it ruins the effect. That's why I never really went for that. I mean, do what you want. If it looks good, if you think it looks good, rock it. But it's why I won't do it. I have strong beliefs about that. About what looks right and wrong on gemstones as far as finishes go. And for miniatures, if you are at all playing with light, if you are doing any sort of overhead lighting or faux lighting or textured effect, where you are suggesting a surface being shiny with just paint, from that, I'd say I would never, ever use a gloss on something like that. Alright, so here we're going to need a dark orange. I'm building up this harvest brown. I don't know if it's going to go dark enough. I need to put it a little bit stronger. We also need to ask ourselves, how transparent are these gems? The reason that people used to use gloss on the eyes of busts, by the way, in the old days, and why it looked good at that time, is that those people were usually painting busts in oils, the skin specifically in oils. Sometimes they paint the whole thing in oils, and then gloss made sense because oil has a sheen. And then later on, when people discovered acrylics, they started still painting the skin in oils because they wanted that sheen that skin has to it. But they would do the clothing in acrylics to get a different finish. So that's an example of something that works, right? Like if you're using matte paints on matte areas of the model, and you're using glossy paints on glossy areas of the model, then it works just fine. That's totally cool. And then with that, I would almost certainly, like if there's metal, you definitely use metallics in that situation. Otherwise, putting gloss over eyes, I find, can be problematic because with eyes, you really are trying to like paint tiny details, right? And when you put any kind of gloss coat over something that you're trying to do tiny details on, you risk losing those tiny details. So I'm putting in some shadows here, guys. And I'm going to actually bring in more white on the highlight facet. Oh yeah, I mean, if you want the slimy effect, you don't want to, for sure on those big guys, you don't want to sit there and painstakingly paint a shiny effect. That would be a pain in the butt. So then, yeah, gloss fair game. Like, as with all, like, it's the amount of work you want to do, right? So if I'm looking to make this gem seem a little bit opaque, like with a lot of fractures, then I want to do it kind of like my purple gem here. But I'm still looking for a darker shadow, I think. So, do I want to actually introduce a little bit of brown liner with my Harvest Orange or some Ruddy Leather or just use my Russet Brown? I think I'm going to try just a little bit of the Russet Brown, which is a bit darker than the Harvest Brown, but it still has a lot of yellow in it. It may make enough of contrast, and I want that dark right up under my light facet. Yeah, that's gonna work. That gives me contrast. All right, cool. Our airbrush talk, I see. Feel free. I will respectfully keep silent on that since I am no expert. I am a noob, airbrush noob, right here in the flesh. So blocking in some dark now. I needed it probably on both sides. Now that I've decided my Russet Brown works and I can mix it with my Harvest Brown to create a good shadow for the orange, I'm going to just run with that. My Russet Brown's pretty thinned though, so that I can control it. I am going to paint it into any cracks and fissures. This gem is very irregular. So these crystals, I think, probably have some fracture lines in them, like some imperfections and such, because a lot of them are pretty ragged. You don't understand the dark. All right, so Val, Gems 101. Let's do a gem. Do I have one? Let's see here. I might have to sticky note this. Let's sticky note sketch. All right, so everybody learns, the first gem that most people learn is the classic Games Workshop gem. So let's use green for this. And this is the easiest way to start thinking about how light travels through translucent objects. We have a gem. It is green. It is round. It is green. It is domed. It is an Eldar gem, in fact. So it's a round, smooth gem, kind of like an opal, but it's one color. We're not going to give it all the different facets that an opal has. An opal has so many rainbows in it because it has a lot high water content and lots of different imperfections in it. And this together creates a rainbow effect. This is going to be real rough, guys. Sorry. So we're just going to make this green. Ignore the rim around the outside. My poor gem is not very actually round. I'm just trying to put a dark circle around it to define it. So green gem, green gem. Green, green, green. So what happens when light enters a gem, and various gems will have various levels of dark. If it's a very transparent gem, like a diamond, which has the greatest transparency, yeah, let's get closer here. All right. Then it's not going to have a lot of very extreme darks in it. There's going to be a lot of light ricocheting around in there. But with this, you've got... Oh, you're dropping? Yep, we're going to do Eldar. So, alright, so the first thing that you're going to do on gemstones, so this is a translucent gem. Like, light is going to pass through it. You actually think that your light is coming from, say, here. This is the typical place for light to enter a gem. But what happens when light actually enters a gem is that it travels through the gem and bounces off this far wall. So what you get then is you get a highlight on this far wall. But what's happening here is that since the light is traveling through the gem, it's not stopping up here, which means that if you have any dark color in your gem at all, you have a shadow. And it's right around your light. It doesn't matter because the light is entering here, and then think about it spreading out as it travels. So let me get this in focus. This is a very rough sketch, but you get the idea. I'm trying to illustrate the point. So as it passes away from this entry point, so let's say this is a medium green gem. And yeah, I'm not using the great colors for it, but you get the idea, right? Medium green gem. So you've got darkness up here, if there's no light, and it's got this single pinpoint of light entering it. And then as it travels through the gem, it spreads out and gets lighter. Until it gets really light down here. But it's not going to get pure white. It's still going through a green gem. So, well, I don't care if my camera is malfunctioning. Nobody needs to look at me. So what you're dealing with here is, say you've got a medium green gem through the whole thing. You know, you are generally a medium green gem. But you have only a single source of light shining on you. Or you've got one strong shining source of light on you. Around where that light is entering the gem is going to be a darker area. It may not be a super dark area, but it will be darker. And how dark you make it is just going to depend on how luminous you want your gem to look. If I want my gem to not look that luminous, I could just put, you know, medium green up here and put my highlight. Boom, 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 boom. You know, maybe I even do a second highlight. Boom. But those highlights do need to be in the darker part of this gem. Because the light hasn't traveled through the gem yet. The light is coming from this direction and it's bouncing off the bottom and side of the gem. Now, if you have a gem that's not very clear, this is going to get interrupted. But you're still generally going to have this happen. So here, we've got a highlight. And we've got shadows kind of around it. Now, the reason we're doing this, also, apart from this being the way that light refracts naturally, is, remember the rule of NMM, where to make something look shiny, you have to have dark and light contrast? So that's what we're doing with these dark shadows. These gems aren't going to look shiny at all unless I can introduce some drama with dark and light on these surfaces. That's just the way it goes. So partially I'm going to be doing that by outlining all these facets with white, which is one trick. Yes, that's why there's always that little dot. It's like the light entering the translucent area, because eyes are also translucent. Light passes through them. That's why you'll often see, like, little head here. Hold on, let me get little head. Head. That's why you're going to see more of a highlight of the iris at the bottom of the eye, typically, and the highlight of the light coming in at the top. Go ahead, sit. Sit, stay. So that's the way that light's like working here. But then we've got the demands of painting something in a 2D way on a 3D object. And to suggest that shininess, we have to have that white next to that somewhat dark. The more dark it is, the shinier it's going to look. That's why when I went almost black on those shadows on those purple gems, it really makes them look dramatic and shiny. So let's take our pure white and start accenting, start outlining these facets. And this is the trick. I mean, Sergio says it to do this. Luca says to do this. You know, anybody who's telling you to paint like an NMM sword or anything is going to tell you to edge in white. Just pretty much giving you the light glancing off of various surfaces toward the eye. Just helps to convey the effect. Remember, you have to sell this effect. You have to convince your viewer that this gemstone is translucent and shiny. Just like with NMM, you need to convince your viewer that the object is reflective and shiny. So these are qualities of the surface that you're trying to convey. There, let's get this back in focus. I am not in, up there I am. There I'm better in focus. The light is coming pretty much straight down, so this is going to be, you'd still need this shadow next to this highlight, remember. So remember also that you can't always go for straight realism. Like, there's a large component of this that's stylistic, that's making decisions just to make it look a little bit better. So here, if I look at the light coming straight down, I wouldn't have as dark a shadow on this side as I would on this side. But I'm going to say that I still have a bit of a shadow there. I'm still going to go with Harvest Brown. And I wanted just a little tiny touch of shadow to make this stand out. So that's an artistic choice on my side. It's making this top facet really pop. So let's outline around those. So remember, it's not always literal. Like, when you're painting a model, you're still doing something artistic. And you could try to paint it completely realistically. But it's going to be really difficult for you sometimes to convey an effect that way. Because there's certain constraints with creating that the effect that you're looking for, right? The shiny versus the reflective versus the transparent. There are things that the eye looks for to clue it in that this is a transparent surface. This is a shiny surface. This is a reflective surface. And with shiny, it definitely wants contrast. Wants that shadow. You can choose to make that shadow more subtle at the risk of not conveying the shininess that you want. But usually what you want to do is muck about back and forth until you get something that looks right. I mean, painting gemstones is one of the most difficult things to do with mini painting. And it's not all hard and fast rules, or it would be easy. It requires you to make some judgments based on how you think the light would act, but also based on the rules of painting a surface, right? A shiny surface must have X and Y. It must have a highlight and shadow, a fairly dramatic one to suggest shine. Now, I could take these gems much more pale, and then I would just leave maybe the orange as the shadow, right? Or I could do something really transparent. Hey there, Roll to Explode. We're back on Mr. Forest Gemstone Dragon. And I decided to tackle some of these gems on his chest right now. So I'm about, I just started. Yeah, so essentially, I'm making a compromise here, Val, because this is a sharper angle. This one still faces the light a bit. So I'm going to bring it up a bit more. But I do want a little bit of a shadow there. I still need a little bit of a shadow there. At least I believe I do. Because shiny. So I'm going to try to bring that surface up, but I am going to leave a little bit of that shadow. Thanks, Roll. They just started. I pretty much just started by blocking in the highest highlight, and now we're doing some white edging around the facets. We're putting in some shadows, which I was just talking about to help the gems look like they have greater depth, and also that they are a shiny object. And then we're going to put in the light going through the other side. We're going to lighten up some of these undersides. Thanks, Roll. Thanks for the raid. I'm glad you were working on Reaper stuff. Yeah, who are you working on? I'm going to start lightening up the underside here. So, using a mixture of lantern yellow and the orange and white. And the lightest opposing facet is going to be the one directly opposite where our light's coming in. So it's going to be this one and this one. Two facets down here that are going to be lighter. Sorry, I'm going to try to get back in. See that? Two lighter facets. So, here we go. That's too light, actually. Well, maybe not. And I also can do this where the whole facet isn't the same color. This is where in Rock Troll we decided to put just some stippling and different effects to make it evident that the crystals weren't totally transparent. Like, painting a perfectly transparent gem, if it's not around, is really, really, really difficult, guys. Like, especially, I mean, I could go for it here, but, I probably wouldn't be using light white for any of my highlights. I would be doing more pure color, more yellow. Let's see here. That's perpendicular. That's not going to get much light. What will happen is that you get various different tones of orange over here. Like, everything isn't going to be the same color. Some things may be cooler, some things may be warmer. I'm going to make this one lighter. I want to make that one cooler. Varying up your facets could be a good idea. I have an example. Let me go and get it. Actually, I need to do something about that underside facet, though. This one is definitely not reading correctly right now. It needs more orange. I think it needs a little more white. I think I lost my... Definitely need to replace my fracture line here. Like, if you look at cut gemstones, pictures of cut gemstones, often with things like sapphires, you're going to see, or amethysts, you're going to see warmer and cooler facets. Like, they're not always going to be the same color on a gem, depending on the gem. And sometimes doing that makes for a more realistic looking gem. Now I have to question, I was going for amber-ish. Let's see. It's working a little. I feel like I need some details. Adding little cracks and imperfections. This is obviously an organic dragon, so he's not all perfect. So we can add in some little kind of stipples and cracks, little bits of fracture bit of texture down here maybe. You can do the kind of the streak or crack thing up above, like we could put a crack in here, kind of a streak, see? Can do the same or a little bit of different stuff over here. But we need something to break up some of these big areas. We need some different kind of textures, different lights and darks. If we look at crystals, most of them, almost all of them have imperfections or they'd be super high priced. I mean, zirconium crystal is like the transparent one, right? That gets close to diamond. But most crystals won't be. So we've got some light going on there now. Hello, Zambies. How's it going? Hello, Rihanna. Oh yeah. No, I never finish a figure in one stream. I'm terrible. You got me beat, Roll. Hold on, I'm grabbing some of my harvest. I want a little bit of shadow here that I don't have. So varying up these faces and not just making them flat helps suggest a more organic shape. I've got this white's a little strong though. I need to work on that. So hold on. Gonna introduce a little bit of harvest here and here. Vary up these facets just a little bit, and I want to kind of put a shadow underneath that line that I did on the top too. Maybe even a little shadow right here. Tiny shadow, like that. There, that works. So, and then I want to tighten up this white. So either I need to like make this shadow brighter, or I need to work a bit with this top surface, I think. So like I said, gemstones, difficult. Not for the faint of heart. I think I need to blend that in better. So it doesn't look like I just made a very bad line. There we go. It's a little bit better. I think I want to do a little bit of orange here. Wherever my lines got a little bit too large, I want to paint a little bit of orange over them. And then I want to come back in with a much sharper So that's how it's starting to look there. We're suggesting some imperfections. Yeah, speed practice is good. Speed practice is good. All right, let's see here. I want those, yeah, I want thin white lines. That's what I want. Let's see if my paint may be too thin for this. Well, it's not too bad. There. So that's getting closer. And I want this one to be white too. Like so. Making our little facets come out again. We got to bring in those little facets a little bit better. And I probably need to take that yellow up down here too. Add in some imperfections there. Whew. Yeah, but yeah, it's taken us all this time just to do one little gem, and we're actually at this point we need to stop soon. So even with my starting a little late and Kiri outing, brief Kiri outing, I think I'm going a little over my hour and a half that I like to put in. So, which is no biggie. We'll at least get this facet drawn in. So like so. Like that. A little bit on the underside down here. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking basic rules and I'm extrapolating them artistically. And this is why gems can get difficult for you if you are just starting to think about lighting. Because when you look at somebody's doing a gem, the rules may not be consistent completely, and so they may not make sense to you. But what I'm doing is I still have my basics. If you ignore all the window dressing, I'm still going with the light entering the gem here and bouncing on the opposite side down here. And I need to lighten the other side there in order to be in line with that. Over here, I need to lighten this side. To show that the light is coming through here. So like that, like going like that, getting that direction. There we go. But I'm also taking some artistic liberties, right? I've got some, some stippling here, some cuts and lines. I'm putting a little bit of shadow up next to other parts around the light. I technically should have a shadow there as well if I'm going to keep with my system. So what it comes down to is you can play with things a little bit. Can make some lines and dots and gouges and places where it's not perfect and work with it that way. I like gems with imperfections a little bit better than gems with No, I mean, that's the point of this stream, Val, is to explain stuff. I'm just going to try to get in. I need a little bit of a dark shadow right under there. But you can see some of the stuff I'm doing. Making some streaks and some holes and some divots and some stipples. I'm making the surface look a little bit more interesting. Let me get my harvest brown again, which is my general medium shadow. I'm just going to put a little bit in. You don't need much sometimes, especially not when you're not right next to it. When you're right next to this light source, then you need that dark shadow. But when you're down in these little secondary areas, you can go more subtle with your shadow. Oh, thanks for the subs, Val. Thanks for the gifted subs. We are slowly marching toward our 100 sub goal for our next AMA giveaway. And I know there's a lot of questions up there too, which is great. We'll have a lot to talk about next time. Some very specific, easy to answer stuff, and some more involved stuff, so it's good. Grabbing my lantern yellow, and I need, I think I want, I don't know. I think I'm all right. Yeah. Does that look right? Yeah, that's getting there. I think I need a little bit of light on the underside of that gem. That facet. Yeah, let's do that. Let's go. Orange plus lantern plus white. And I want this just a little lighter down here. Because it's opposite a light source. So down here, we're going to have that. So like so. And I still feel like I need a little more light on this side. So I'm going to block in a little bit more light and actually bring it up even a little bit more. See, it's just this tuning thing where you're asking yourself, you kind of go back off and look at it every once in a while and you go, okay, where do I need more light? Where is it going to go through? It needs to be more light down here. Needs to be more light down there to really make me believe that light is passing through the surface. And I need to put in actually need a shadow down here, I think. Up against this gem, I'm going to have to create a darker brown shadow. I was going light on it earlier, but there's definitely light, and so there's definitely a shadow here. Wouldn't necessarily get light, wouldn't get as much light under this gemstone because the gemstone's going to interrupt that light. And what I can do then is I can line to show where the gemstone meets the chest very, very lightly. I'm going to want to vary. This is where I'd want to use my brown liner, and I'd want to thin it way down because both of these areas are very light. So when if you do line, you want that line to be really not going to punch you in the face. But you want a separator between the chest and that gem. Let's see. So let me pop that in. Then we'll kind of back off and look at it. So real subtle. That looks more like a shadow. And that's why brown liner is wonderful. Because when you thin it down to this point, you end up with that lovely kind of subtle, just what's more than it's not really a line, it's just a slight suggested shadow. And I like that a lot. I like that subtlety of that area. And look how that crisps up the gemstone. So now we can definitely see the boundary of the gemstone. Let me go over and get the other side real quick. But we haven't disrupted the light. We still made it crisp up though. Even on the upper side, we can add that little tiny line. And if you keep it stark, it's going to look very, very much like the gem is just like a stuck on top. Yes. Sepia liner, make sure the color's right. It might not be right with this orange val. Brown liner is very neutral. Like, I would sepia liner, if you're doing something in yellows with no oranges, I would go for sepia. But sepia is very yellow. It's not very orange necessarily, as I recall. So be careful. Sometimes those things will clash. So what I can do, if I feel like I got a little bit too strong with that upper line, is I can glaze over it with a mixture of Osirian sand and my pale green. I'm just going to mix up some colored water. And I can just paint. You can paint a glaze over something in a line. You don't even need to worry. You just paint right over the top of it. And since it's a glaze, it just takes it down just like a little bit. But you still get to keep your line. You just keep your line in a lot more subtle manner. So never let it be said that glazes have to be put over a big surface. You can make them, you can use them to make the gem blend in better on the dragon's soft underbelly. Glaze another line. Glazing can be used all over the place. In tiny little applications that you wouldn't think you could use a glaze in. There. And now it looks a lot more natural. Still looks like it still should look like it's coming out of his skin. I mean, it is. And I'm probably going to highlight right up against it as if the skin is like rising up, because it is sculpted that way a little bit on some areas. But there you go. So hopefully what we see here, and I'm still adjusting, like I can see this side needs to be a little more orange. Because if we look at the light and how it's going in, it's going to hit probably this side a little bit stronger if we're looking opposite. Like this side will be a little bit lighter than that side. So I could take my orange and glaze just a little. But yeah, sepia is a very odd color, and it works really good on yellows and yellow browns, but not so good in orange, in my opinion. So block that in a little bit more on orangey side. See? All right, now I think we've got something. I feel like we could even introduce some more yellowy orange highlights here on this flat side if we wanted to suggest more imperfections. So this is all just tweaking, like, you know. Gemstones don't come natural to me. I just learned how to really do faceted gemstones about a year ago, I want to say. Year and a half. I started studying it. Because it was one of the things I felt I hadn't mastered, and every once in a while I like to try to think about such things. If it's something... If somebody asks me a question about how to do something and I can't immediately answer, then I'm like, oh, well, there's a hole in my knowledge. I need to go and study this. Yeah, there we go. So I glazed a little bit of a pale yellow over the lower part of this front gem. And I like how that looks now. So that's kind of where we're going. Hey there, Planer. Thanks for the resub. I love Reaper. We love you too. So yeah, so that's what we're working on today, is figuring out gemstones. So now back here, I just went with a general like yellow and orange. I was throwing around all sorts of stuff back here. And I'll have to work this out. But these big long gems are like, I wouldn't want to do really transparent gems on this guy, because these big long ones would get really boring then. These big long crystals. What you like is a lot of imperfections, like on Rock Troll. All of those little breaks and cracks, you see? Those imperfections allow you to suggest more detail with these big crystals that otherwise might just get really kind of boring. So putting in cracks and fault lines and things like that is a good idea. And so I usually don't want to do a totally transparent crystal unless it's very tiny. And even then, like if it's round, then it's easy. Everything else... Hi, Grumble Drum. Nice to meet you. We're doing Mr. Gemstone Dragon, and I was just working on gemstones on his chest. So now I have to figure out how I'm going to pull the rest of this. He's got wrinkles and he's got gemstones, and so it's like the wrinkles are green and the gemstones are orange, and somewhere like there's going to be kind of a crossover, so I got to think about that, like as what this area is. If I just want to do orange on the biggest gemstones, I think is the way I'm going to run. So I'm probably going to block these areas in green, and with these slightly medium-sized scales, I might do a yellow gem, and then save the big gems for orange gems. I think that's the way we're going to do it. So I have to keep my color sanity. But I really like how his belly is coming up. I think that's coming along really well. I'm going to have to remember how to remix all my paints. Because I'm not going to keep my palette another day. We'll work on ship's figurehead tomorrow, probably. Thanks, Grumble. Yeah, gems are fun. I mean, they take a while. Especially if you just learned them. Or you're trying to learn them. They take a while, because it takes a lot of kind of remembering some basic rules and just asking yourself continually, okay, does this look right? Why doesn't it look right? You know, learning to troubleshoot it. Like here, I just need to reintroduce my little white lines, my white edges down there on the bottom, so that they look a little bit nicer. And maybe I want to put a fracture line in here, like a little white edged kind of irregular line. So yeah, so that's where we are. All right, I think, Justin, that we can shut up about gemstones now, and oh. Could you shift the purple when dealing with a different stone? Shift the orange. Like shift it as far as a different orange entirely, Mathophile? Yeah, I mean, I could do that. Like, just like on Troll, like we could make some of these pinker and some of these more purple and some of these more blue. It might look a little more chaotic. It really is what you're thinking. Me personally, I would probably do all of the orange stones around the same range, similar. Some of them might end up a little more yellow. Some of them might end up a little more orange. And the reason I was thinking that on this guy is that they're all, like, usually when gemstones have different colors, it's different minerals, right? It's different deposits. But if it's a shell that's grown by this guy, it's all coming from the same place. It's all the body chemistry of the dragon. So I could see varying color on these crystals based on, say, maybe the area of the dragon, because that would make more sense to me, that the big crystals on his back might be a slightly different color or slightly different range than, say, some of these smaller crystals or things that are on his arms or his, whatever. Whatever you do, I would make a method to it. I would make sure that it makes sense. So the biggest crystals are this color, or the crystals that are going down his back are slightly different in makeup because they're longer, and so they're going to be a different color just a little bit. But the crystals up here are consistent also. Well, but again, it's like, usually crystals will be different based on different deposits. So I have to ask myself how much of a range there would be. I'm already doing that in a way because I'm going to make these smaller crystals more yellow. So little crystal is going to be more yellow, big crystal is going to be more orange. So I am doing some variation based on size. But the dragon's body chemistry to me is going to be similar. Now, of course, you can always wave a wand and say, hey, magic, and go whatever you want. That's fine. I could do orange and purple crystals on the back, and it would be great. And maybe we'll do it. Who knows? Hey, Miniatures Den.
Luda, oh man.
Luca with the fat raid. Now am I going to have to go for another hour?
Sounds to me like you're going for another hour, Ann. I'll see you then.
Oh dear. Here, let me take a drink of water. I've been talking for like an hour and a half with no drink of water. 1 second.
Thanks, Luca.
Yeah, Luca, what a guy.
Also, perfect timing here. Everyone who's in here now, you can look forward to a Luca show. It is on the horizon, I promise. We keep saying this. I promise it'll happen.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of finding time to get the rest of the stuff done for it.
So we are working on the Gemstone Dragon for Bones 5, guys. Is the one we've been working on all week here on my stream. This is Anne. I work for Reaper. I do the Reaper Pro Tips show from 11:30 a.m. USA Central Time to 1 p.m. So we're actually already a half an hour late because I had to stop and explain stuff because we started to actually do some of the gemstones on the chest here today. So Gemstone Dragon, I decided I wanted to do him as a fall forest Gemstone Dragon. I'm crossing the streams. It's a forest and a Gemstone Dragon. And we really much wanted to do kind of a watercolor effect on this guy. So up here, I definitely started with the pale colors, and I worked down instead of up. So whereas a lot of people, and me included, I'll start with a mid-tone, I'll work down, I'll work up. I decided I wanted to start very light and work down this time, and much more of a watercolor painting method than a regular miniature painting method. So that's why he's kind of washed out. We are slowly adding in. As you can see, we did the belly today to get kind of some lights and shadows established. I wanted it to look kind of soft and leathery, and then got these big harsh gemstones. The biggest gemstones are going to be orange, we decided. So I'm blocking them in. Some big ones down here kind of look like a necklace. I do need to take a break because it is time for me to take the dog out and start lunch in a little bit and all that sort of thing. But yeah, this always happens, right? You raid somebody and they're about to go offline themselves. But yeah, so if you go back and you watch the VOD of this show, I talk a lot about crystals and how they work. We showed also Mr. Rock Troll, which is another project we work on this stream from time to time, and he's got his big purple crystal up top there, blocked in pretty nicely. And I did these little crystals on the arm actually last week. So there are a couple of gemstone projects we have going on here now. But I had this lovely dragon hanging out, and people always bug me to do dragons. So I thought that even though he's going to take a very long time, that we would work on Mr. Gemstone Dragon this week. So this is a Bones 5 model. It's available right now on the Pledge Manager. Bones 5 should fulfill next year, I think. Am I in spring? Am I correct, guys? April?
It's supposed to.
Okay, yeah, that's our target. Yeah, Reaper sometimes is a month late or two, but, we do our best.
Sometimes we're early.
Yeah, sometimes we are. I think, didn't we do early last time, I think? I don't know.
I think technically by a little bit, but not enough to really matter, I don't think. People weren't like, oh man, months early. Now it's more like days, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what we're working on right now. I haven't blocked his eyes in, haven't done a lot up here, and stuff like that. But generally, I want a softer look for this guy. I'm not looking to be garish. I want to be a little bit more natural. Even though he's gemstony, I kind of want him to look like a natural creature. So I put some pinks and stuff and some rosy color around his mouth to show that he's more organic up here. And I am going with like a softer feel, softer, more leathery feel for his underside as well to go with his very, very sharp, glassy carapace. So yeah, so as we progress on this guy, I'm going to be kind of doing a blend of naturalistic and sharp sort of stuff with the gemstones. So, and I was just taunting Mathophile with maybe going purple and orange on the gemstones on the back. I'm not sure I want to do that. Maybe I'll toss in a purple one every once in a while. For it depends on how much I want to depart from my color scheme. But I'm kind of enjoying my color scheme right now. So I think I'm pretty good where it is. Maybe we'll just use some purple when we do the pink fleshy tones on the wings. And this is an original 3D print of this, by the way, guys. This is the one that our production, our 3D printing department printed out for Ed to show off on the original Reaper Live show. So this is like the original 3D print prototype. Yeah, ASMR, exactly. No, I'm not painting poorly. I'm just, for one thing, remember, this is very early days, but yes, I'm also going more watercolor. I want more subtle. I mean, I can go pop, right? I can go much more poppy than this, but I wanted a very naturalistic, like soft in the morning forest kind of look for him. I'll have to put some plants on his base because it's very rocky and crystally right now. And I want to have him kind of like in a forest clearing with like a magical stone or something. I don't know. I haven't decided. But you get the idea. Yeah. And he will get more dramatic. Like as I layer in more saturation and darker shadows and brighter crystals, he will get brought up. But we're doing it in a very opposite to my normal type of painting, right? So here, let me show you ASMR. This is the other thing I've been working on. I'm going with an oil painting technique on one end of my life and a watercolor technique on the other end of my life. So this is the best that I'm working on for myself, and she is a very much more like was worked as if she were oils. It's not oil paint, but it's very in that style, right? So that sort of thing. So there she is, and I like her a lot. She's from Mr. Lee's Miniatures. But
Are you ready for a raid, by the way, Miss Ann?
yeah, now that we've talked a little bit about the dragon and people feel like they've actually maybe looked at stuff here, I guess we can. Nice head. Thanks, Miniatures Den. Yeah, she's Siggy from Mr. Lee's Miniatures, but I want to paint her like she's kind of like I love Overwatch, and Farah in Overwatch has armor like that, so she's like Farah's grumpy older sister or something. I don't know. But yes. So I paint in a lot of different styles, as you can see, guys. So I've got Rock Troll, which is one style. I've got that head, which is in another style. I've got the dragon, which is another style. We've got everything. We've got everything here. So yeah, that is us. Please come and watch us from time to time if you feel like it. We appreciate the views. I will be streaming on my own channel, twitch.tv/paintingbig, in a few hours over on, that's 4:30 p.m. Central Time, USA. Might be a little late for Europe, though. But yeah, and I do some other commission stuff and other stuff, my own projects over there. So thank you for coming. And who are we going to raid, Justin?
We're going to be raiding Just Dices.
Just Dices. Awesome. Fantastic. So let us go and have Dices, give Dices a good fanfare, everybody. Say hello. It was nice meeting those of you who I've never met before. And I hope I'll see you around at some point. And now it is time to take the old dog out before she explodes again. Have a great one, everybody. I hope you have a fantastic Wednesday. We're almost a couple more days to the weekend. Have fun today.
Thank you guys very much. Keep being awesome. And we will see you guys tomorrow. Thanks again, Luca, for the raid. Have a great rest of your night, Luca.